Deputy Chief Jeff Marchetti. Jeff's a 24-year veteran of the Brockton Fire Department. Is assigned as the Deputy Chief of Training, ran tons of drill schools over the years. Currently assigned as a shift commander. He's a hazmat technician on the state hazmat team. Throughout his career, Deputy Marchetti played an integral part developing and implementing a lot of our new programs, Shooter, RIT, Asher, and the lithium-ion battery problem as well. So please welcome Brockton Fire Deputy Chief Jeff Marchetti. Slideshow, and you're good. Put that on your shirt.
Put this down. All right, how you doing? Jeff Marchetti, Brockton Fire. I got everything else. So we heard, energy storage systems, car fires, and now the rest, right? And probably what we're going to deal with most commonly. In the beginning, we were introduced as experts, SMEs, right? And no offense to my fellow presenters, but I think what we're walking out here today is learning that when it comes to these lithium-ion batteries, that person doesn't exist, right? If we learned anything. We had one of the guys on the forefront from Lithium-Ion, someone that we've had the opportunity to speak to a lot and take some of his classes and interact with. And we've learned a lot from him, but even he tells you, right? I don't think that expert exists. So what really drives me with this stuff is just the operational, right? There's a 30,000-foot view, there's codes and these, things like that. That's all good stuff. But what I worry about is being ill-prepared and ill-equipped, right? And in this room, and for me now, it's more about the firefighters, right? That guy at 2 a.m. out there on the truck, are they going to know what to do? Have we given them proper equipment and proper training to keep themselves safe, right? And that's really what it comes down to for me. It's operational. It always is. On the ground level, how are we going to get this done? So, and that's what we focused on here, right? What's our plan right now with what we know today? That might change in a couple days, a couple months. And I'll tell you, when we were planning this, right, building the plane as we fly it, that is absolutely correct. Over the years, as we've been going through this, it's changed as we were doing it. We'd talk to a vendor one week, and the very next week, what we talked about changed because they learned something new, and it changed the special permit for overpacking. It changed the way that we did as we were going with this plan. So that's where we're at, and we still are, unfortunately. So that's the big takeaway is that this is evolving, that we got to try to stay ahead of it. Operationally, what we're going to do right now. When you walk back into your department, what are you going to do when you show up? What is that crew going to do at 2 a.m. when you're not there yet? Have you given them the proper equipment and proper training to mitigate this while keeping themselves as safe as we can? Right? It's a dangerous job, I know, and even if everything's going right in the way it should, bad things can still happen. But we have to at least do that, right? So, talking about devices, we'll watch a few videos, and we'll get into what we've come up with for us based on what we've learned and what we're doing now, what we've been doing. And it has been working for us. So all these videos have a reason why I'm going to show them. Hopefully this is going to work for me. Should connect. Yeah. Yeah, it should connect. When it does. Hold on. Yeah. Good? Yeah. All right. Maybe all right.
Just reload it, maybe. Yeah.
Come on.
The Wi-Fi doesn't, the state Wi-Fi doesn't like YouTube.
Well, the next video you guys actually saw, one of the other guys showed this, and it was a scooter in the room when the dog popped, right? And you saw that, and then the point of that video for us watching it is the little to no warning, right? We heard about off-gassing. It typically does that before it goes into that full thermal runaway. But it's that little to no warning. So keep that in mind, because once we get to mitigation and stuff that we're going to do, this is one of my favorite ones. I don't think the guy enjoyed it, but keep an eye on what's going on here and how fast this goes, right? He's like, yeah, I'm going to get some water, right? Now in Vietnam, right? He's low out of there, the stuff shooting off, but watch the projectiles, right? He's not having a good day. All right, so the first video, little to no warning. Keep that in mind. Look what just happened, right? Keep that in mind when we talk about mitigation and why we're going to take certain precautions, right? Because of that little to no warning. You don't have time to react. You're not going to have time to, if you were carrying it in your hands or put it in your pockets, to undo that, right? When this thing decides to go. And this here, those projectiles, right? And how, look at it, it's still going off, and how severe this thing got so fast, right? We talk about legacy construction, doubles in size, doubles in size every 2 to 3 minutes, right? And then new age synthetics every 30 seconds. Well, this is much more than that, much faster. These burn hotter and faster than what we're used to, which means it's going to be deeper into your structure than you would think based on the amount of fire that you saw, right? So when you guys are digging these fires out, you got to expect that, right? So there's a lot of extra when we're talking about this. When we're talking about overall, when we're talking about looking for that extension and opening up, right? And final wet downs, a lot of extra. Did you notice the woman holding? Those people did live, but as we've learned how toxic, there could be a lot of patients there. I don't know the follow-up on it, but the bottom left. So first, little to no warning. That's why, right? And guys have to ingrain this in their brains and show this to your crews, why we're going to take certain precautions. Projectiles, right? When we're talking about overhaul and sweeping for these things, why we're going to do it a certain way. And why we're not going to put these things in elevators.
Again, investigators say another lithium-ion battery sparked a massive fire in the city. This time, it burned through a supermarket in the Bronx, then spread to other businesses within minutes. And as CBS 2 Lisa Rosner reports, firefighters say this should serve as a warning. As flames burst from the roof of 2096 Grand Concourse, large plumes of smoke filled the sky. Everywhere the smoke was like we couldn't breathe. Still on the scene into the evening. The Lithium-Ion says more than 200 firefighters responded to the fire that started in the back of the supermarket. The entire building is destroyed and the roof caved in. Video released by the Lithium-Ion shows a scooter catching fire and the flames spreading within seconds, soon taking over the nearby laundromat and other stores. The fire chief says once the battery catches fire, it's incredibly difficult to extinguish.
Under 5 minutes, we already were putting water on that e-bike fire, and it already spread throughout the building. It's really something that we have never seen before.
Okay, so that's my point. All right, so those videos, right, those were all certain things. Little to no warning. Projectiles, ongoing, right, throughout. And how far away they went, right, in places that we're not going to expect it. We see the origin here, we're looking for the cause, and the projectiles went into the next room or in the wall, okay? And then that burned hotter and faster, and this is FDNY saying that they didn't expect a small fire like that to take that building that fast, all right? So pretty impressive stuff. So just the makeups of the battery, I'm not going to get into, you guys, we've heard about a few different ways, anode, cathode. Lithium ions move within, electrons move without on an external circuit. They're secondary batteries, which means they are rechargeable. There is electrolyte in there. It's a very small amount. It's still a dry cell battery, right? It's a dry cell battery. There is electrolyte. It's minimum. It's lithium salts, all right? And when this thing has its event, right, that thermal runaway we're talking about, so that's a cell, 18650 cell. Individually, these are cells, okay? Individually, 18650 cell. When you just one with a battery management system, or multiples like this, it becomes a battery pack. We heard about modules, right? That's bigger. That's energy storage systems, that's cars. When we're talking about this stuff, it's battery packs. You pass that around, right? And that has a battery management system, that's the brain, right? That's what gets these things to work together. That's what's supposed to make them safe, tell it when it's charged, when to stop charging me, right? When I'm too hot, you know, my phone, I left it on the table out in the sun, and it said, I don't want to work anymore, shut me off, I'm too hot, I'm dangerous. That's the battery management system. So when people start to tamper with those things, that's when we start to have problems. All right, so when that's separated, some type of aluminum foil as an anode, as a cathode, copper foil, which sometimes will be all that's left of these things when it catches on fire. And then I have a separator, which would be some type of plastic, or they say intellectual property. They won't really tell us what it is. Can be damaged in many ways, but when that happens, they touch, we get that short circuit we were talking about, and now we get resistance. And we know with electricity and resistance creates heat. You start to get that electrolyte, that's the off gas, right? Through that vent, it's meant to do that. That off gas we know is flammable and toxic. Enough heat, it's going to ignite. You got combustibles around it, and we have a problem. Typical fires, 500, 800 degrees, 2,000 degrees. All right, so hotter and faster, it's gonna behave differently. I want to say any questions, but I can't. He'll yell at me.
Move on.
All right. So that's that, right? All right, so we talked about thermal running. Cell failure, many reasons, right? Whether it's thermal, mechanical, being punctured, device going up and down curbs, banging off a curb. It's also manufacturing is very precise, need to be made in clean rooms. And some of them are, some of them aren't, right? Some of them are UL, some of them have UL stickers on them, but have nothing to do with UL, right? Coming in overseas. Some of them are harvested from like a battery we saw at that junkyard, and someone went in there and chiseled them all out and put them in a solvent to get the adhesive off, and then sold those because they were cheaper than new ones, right? Or Uncle Joe said, I can make that scooter faster, kid, give me that, right? And he took some other batteries and made a bigger battery without the battery management system, and now we have a problem. So there's many, many reasons, right? Demand, these things are in everything. Demand goes up, what usually goes down? Quality, same time, right? I'll use a cheaper metal, battery management system's not as good. Whatever the cases are, there's many reasons why we can go into failure. But if we do, thermal runaway. We've heard about this, right? So I just talked about that. We can't stop that. Battery goes into thermal runaway, I cannot stop it. I don't care how much water you put on it, it's gonna happen, whether we like it or not. It's the propagation, the spread, the extension. Because I have more than one, typically, these are all packed together, they heat up their buddies, the buddy says, hey, I like what you're doing, I'm gonna do it too, and now they all start popping off, going in thermal runaway. The one thing we are trying to do is slow this propagation. All right, so we wanna try to slow that down and hopefully stop that, if we can. We're not stopping the thermal runaway once that's happening. All right, so when we talk about cooling these, right, and put them in the water, what's to say when I take that out of there, it's not going to happen again, right? So just keep an eye on a couple things here. Timing, temperature, you're going to see the temperature kick up. So laptop battery, 9 cells in it that it's telling us, 94 watt hours. Volts times watts gives us our watt hours. So watch our timing, watch our temperature changes. Imagine this is on someone's couch, on someone's bed. So that was the first one. Not too big an event there. Temperature starts kicking up. .800 degrees. Some little projectiles there. Now, again, on that metal table, okay, on that couch, we're already extending. Almost 1,400 degrees. That was just cell 2. At what point did we walk in as the fire department? Oh, give me that. I'll take it outside. Oh, shit. Right? How easy is it to walk in at the wrong time and think that this is nothing? So over temperature, I told you we're getting to around 2,000 degrees with these things. We get the lulls in between. Now we're getting more projectiles. So how do we keep our firefighters safe? How do we keep that first company in from just grabbing that thing and wanting to walk outside with it? Right? Are they even geared up yet? Because it came in as, who knows, right? I had a problem with my computer. Okay, well, check it out. Right? 6 of the 9 cells went, so we had 3 more to go. And how would we know that? Would we know that? No. Look how far these things went, 13 feet away, and only because the wall stopped them. So again, another incidence of precautions and why we're going to do them and why you need to compel your firefighters to do it this way, right, to keep themselves safe, because we've seen what they do. And we have to resist that urge to just walk in and mitigate, right? No, I'm going to take care of this. No, we don't want to do that. We're going to slow it down. We're going to take a step back. And if we see something like this going on, all right, let's step back. Let's evaluate this, get properly geared up. Let's take those precautions so that this event's already happening. Right, let's get to that life safety incident stabilization stuff. Let's back people up. Let's make sure they're isolated. Let's get a line in here. Let's get geared up. Let's get on here, right, and do this the safe way, as safe as we can now. All right, so just some couple different things. This is a laptop battery within our department, expanded. I'm going to talk about this, but your own programs within your departments for end-of-life batteries versus DDR batteries, damaged, defective, recalled batteries. Right, so this was in our normal end-of-life battery recycling, which, that doesn't belong there, but did we know that then, right? So now we're awareness, as you start awareness in your department, awareness in your communities, right? This type of stuff's going to be turning up. So how do we deal with that? All right, this was a laptop fire that we had, and you can see damage here. Luckily, it didn't spread. But the cells, did we get them all? I hope so, right? And this is part of that sweeping and diligence that we have to do now. Drone battery fire in someone's kitchen. They had just purchased the drone, and then they thought they'd get a nice, cheap battery on Amazon. There's certain things, right? They're compatible. They're compatible with that machine and compatible with a certain charger. But just like your phone, did you get the Apple charger that it came with, or did you go get the one that says it will charge it twice as fast for half the money, right? And that's that degradation we're talking about. So that thing's heating up because it's charging faster than it's supposed to. Battery management system doesn't like it. That separator starts to degrade every time it does it, right? And that's why we talk about making sure everything's compatible. Well, that's what happened here. We've had a bunch, and we're better now at tracking. We have a Google form we'll fill out so that we're better tracking fires now with NFIRS coming up with something for us. So we were digging back, finding where we've had these, and these ones are all very, very recent. So tool batteries, looks like Ryobi, I think. How many of us take that drill, right, turn it over and smash in the nail or something like that, right? Or you dropped it 20 feet off the ladder, you went down and got it, right? Happens all the time. What about the tools in our trucks? They're all strapped down and secure, right? No one threw those around, right? So this is what we're talking about. E-cigarette, how about that? Pretty significant. This is the one you heard Kevin talking about earlier, right? Brand new, never touched outside of manufacturing. And that's what we got. Where is she?
Sarah, I'll get those batteries for you. Those are still wrapped, never touched by a person. On fire sitting there.
All right. I used that one up. All right. So this is cell phone repair store. So one of the things I'm going to say, there's a lot of homework here when you go back to your communities, right? Talking to your police departments, your tow companies, your recycling, however that exists in your communities. Who's doing that now? What are they capable of handling? What are you going to be doing, and what are you willing to do with this stuff? And threat assessment, risk assessment in your community, right? What do you have already, and what are they doing with them? Well, this is one of the many we have, and this is in the mall, and this is what it looked like. So this guy has, this store has probably over thousands of these batteries, right? And he's soldering over here in the corner up here, right here, right? No protections, just soldering connectors on these brand new batteries, right? One after the other. And this one, he got some heat on and it blew up in his face, right? Look at all of this, right? We averted disaster here, but you know how this came in? Just a regular medical. But like we've been telling you, one of the big things here is, oh yeah, so this is actually from that part of evidence collection. So all that was left was really that copper foil, right? So everything else was really gone. There's probably some electrolyte or some dust on there. I don't know what it is. I didn't test it, but tasted like that. So, but look at this, right? So standards we're talking about, regulations and codes, right? I mean, where does everybody want us to be? Green and batteries, right? Does anyone want to regulate this stuff? Right? So this guy burnt his hand and stuff. He might have had some inhalation. He refused to go to the hospital. And that was that. But look at we let ourselves into. So we've been doing risk assessments, right? How many e-bike stores? How many repair shops? What's driving through the city, right? Who picks up all the bad batteries that everyone turned in from their phones and pops them in the van and now is driving through your community, right? All of your, transportation bikes and things like that. Whatever it is, right? They're there. It all exists. All right, where's my man? Rekindle. Here we go.
3 days later, but officials there say that the fire in an e-bike repair shop that spread to apartments and killed 4 people Tuesday rekindled earlier tonight. The fire earlier this week was caused by lithium batteries exploding, and investigators believe that batteries in that burned out debris reignited today.
The batteries try to scatter throughout debris, so we took out as much as we could, and it's significantly contracted through the batteries, so we're back together.
Fire Commissioner Laura Kavanaugh says so far this year, there have been more than 100
Can I skip over the
fires
5 alarm?
and 13 deaths linked to them.
You're up.
Okay, so New York had that rekindle, that e-bike store. We hear about them all the time, right? The disasters, the dirty word. No one wants to say it. It was said, right? It happens. It's happened many times. It's probably going to happen again. Not your typical rekindle, though. We're gonna give it a pass. No, right? But involving lithium-ion batteries, right? We expect, right? So we're going to take certain precautions because I expect an event. We're doing this with these cars because I expect something to happen. We're going to do stuff with these at house fires or out in the street with an e-mobility device because I'm expecting an event. I'm expecting this. I'm treating this like a mini pipe bomb. I'm thinking rekindle. I expect an event. That's why I'm doing certain things the way we're going to do it. All right. So Bartlett Street. The first fire, second alarm fire, shut up, right? So the second time, I'll just get to this now. That was the most underwhelming, melancholy second alarm I've ever hit on arrival. The second time, right? It was terrible. Usually those don't feel terrible. They feel pretty good. Like, all right, let's go, right? This was bad. So anyway, the first time we get a call for a house fire. We got smoke showing, report of a basement fire. Guys get down there and find it. And it was a basement fire. They do tell us they got some lithium-ion batteries down there, e-bike charging, and they weren't wrong, right? And this is like that e-bike store. That was an operational period of a week or 2 weeks, whatever it was for FDNY, because it was over their capacity, over their capabilities to overpack and deal with, right? And this probably was actually for us too. And I kind of look at this like MCI, right? Is this overwhelming us right now or not? Can I handle this with what I got reasonably in amount of time? or is it too much? And I need to now get into that contractor stuff, right? So that's kind of how we look at this. So anyway, the guys go down, and it's never a typical basement. They go in the rear, and they have what they see, some fire and smoke. It's all banked down, but they can't get to it. Of course, they have to go all the way to the front now with the line, take a left, and now on this side, it's walled off, and it's all particle board, and all the way down is shelving of lithium-ion batteries, right? Some of them brand new, some in the packages, some not. And then there's a couple scooters, and way in the back is an e-bike on fire. All right, so by the time they got there, was a lot more on fire. So that's some of the shelving. So this was our junior firefighter's attempt at extinguishment right in the beginning. I think this was the person that it was his bike. So he's got a guard nose in there going at it. That's the bike down there. It appeared to me, we weren't sure it actually was an e-bike at first. Looks like it might have been like something that someone was making. There was 75 to 100 batteries in here of all various types, brand new, some not. What was he doing? Were they making batteries? Were they selling them? Was they just collecting items? I don't know, right? So with that, and this is what it looked like after, of course, in that narrow corridor from front to back. Guys did a great job knocking down the fire. We realized we had this. Now, we were in the middle of our plan. We were coming up with stuff and ways to do things. And we didn't have our equipment yet. We had ordered it. And so we were in the middle of it all. But we knew what we had and what we were going to have to do. So the fire got knocked down. Guys did a great job. We get some rehab. And now the tedious job now, right? There's 2 overhauls now, and we're talking about this stuff. There's the sweep. Before you pull down the ceilings and everything else, we knew this was lithium-ion batteries. We know we had to check everywhere and everything for this small cell. Not fun, right? There's no lights in there. It's all soot and stuff, right? So, so we had to do this tedious process throughout this whole basement and now in the ceiling, and we're looking everywhere. We went through more bottles, sending crews in and out, right? We have to be fully geared up. We have to be on air. We don't want to carry these things in our hands. We're not putting them in our pockets. Non-conductive shovels, right? We're looking, and we need a charge hose line in place. And we start bringing these outside to an isolated area. I need someone out there, crew, ready, geared up, packs on with the charge hose line, right? So whatever we're doing with these things, they need to be monitored. We need a hose line ready. We need a crew ready. All right. So now we went through more bottles, getting these things outside. It took a while. All right. And you can tell, that gets frustrating, right? Overhaul and waiting around fire prevention. Guys don't like that, but that's what we do. So we went through that tedious process. Then we got back at it with our regular overhaul, wetting down, and those things, the investigation. Now, we didn't have our equipment, so luckily there was a 55-gallon drum at this property. So at the time, we had nothing better other than let's fill it with water and put them in. So this is the fire that Kathy had mentioned. And look at this. Does that look like a safe drum full of nice water? Those are off-gassing, toxic and flammable gas. Now, we didn't take a headspace at the top of this. We did, grants, we did, all our equipment came through grants. We're ready to upgrade some meters that are now capable of metering for stuff like this. And we didn't have it at the time. But those are off-gassing that whole time. So we're going to get into like the mitigation part in our options. So that's not something I was very happy about leaving. But that's all we could do at the time. All right? That's not safe, right? In a neighborhood with whoever, kids and others coming around and things like that. So so we took things outside. We had 2 scooters and an e-bike, so our guys had to be on air. There was a watch line watching them with the crew ready to go, and they're dismantling because we had to get these in the drum. Right, we weren't overpacking with the drums and cell block, but we were getting them in a 55-gallon drum, so we had to dismantle them, get those batteries, and put them in that drum. So at this point, right, the fire is knocked down, the emergency part is over, but I know I have these things that I'm thinking rekindle. I'm thinking these little pipe bombs, right? They're just lying in wait. They're waiting for me to let my guard down and do something bad to me. So I'm not going to do that. We're going to keep geared up. We're going to stay on there. We're going to use those non-conductive shovels, and we're going to get all of these. We're going to tedious search and get these out, right? Depending on the structure, I may need to overpack them before I move them out, right? If I'm on the 10th floor of a high rise, how comfortable am I walking around like this, right? So maybe I want to overpack them first, but if I'm in a basement at this 3-deck or 2.5, right, maybe it's just getting them out with that non-conductive shovel. Again, I'm expecting something to happen. So how long do I let it sit in here, all right? So we dismantled those and we got them all in this drum. Now they're all off gassing, but it's what we had at the time. And we made it as safe as we could for what we had then, okay? We did come up with a few things, and Kathy we were talking during one of the breaks. If the DP is called, right? So the homeowner, take responsibility if they can, or if they're willing. How do we police that? I don't know. And then, or they call a contractor, right? But if you feel like you had to, it's the fire department that calls the DP. From Kathy, right? She said, we call, and they.
You call DEP and we'll call our contractor. Don't, fire department, don't call the contractor, because then they're gonna be sending the bill to you. So call us if the situation comes up. Not able to do it right now.
So if you feel like that's the route that you're going to choose to go in your community, that's an option, right? So there is on the contractor list, they do have to meet a response time. It's hours, not days, I'm told. This one did take like 3 days because the insurance company was involved, and we were working this out as we would go. We were laying the bricks while we were walking, and we got the insurance company to cover it and hire a contractor. This thing went to New Bedford. I ran into the person, add another hazmat thing, and they still had the drum and couldn't get rid of it. So, there's a lot there. All right. So there's other stuff too. There was a 5-alarm fire that had a lithium-ion battery charging station. There was another 5-alarm fire that we had, and it was a UPS. It was a uninterrupted power supply, not lithium-ion batteries, but that's what caused that fire. We had a market basket. We get in there because someone smelled something, and we're chasing it down. We're checking all the regular stuff. All the mobile cart things out front were charging, and this was a non-spillable lead-acid AGM battery, absorbed glass mat battery. And just, there's always new technology. We're going to be learning about others as we move forward in the years, but AGM battery. So this thing was expanding. It was overheating, and this was a problem. Call Chemtrek. You know what they're going to tell you? Yeah, that's an explosive hazard. It needs to be properly mitigated and this and that. So we treated it the same way, right? So we're talking about lithium-ion batteries, but all these batteries can present a hazard if these things are disfigured, they're overheating, right? They're not as dangerous, and they don't have this long-term thermal runaway thing going. But we still got to be cautious of this stuff, because we fully expected to find a lithium-ion battery in there doing this. It wasn't. So it was that non-spillable lead acid. Just on those non-spillable lead acid, if you have a golf course in your community and those are on charges, they give off hydrogen gas, cross sensitivity with carbon monoxide, just in case you're getting carbon monoxide alarms in those areas. All right, so general for incidents. We've talked about this. For us, any incident involving lithium-ion batteries, we're going to notify the IC or shift commander if that's not the same person, because we want to make sure that we're discussing this, that we're making sure this is the right thing to do. So when the deputy had that with the car, and they were able to get their heads together and decide whether this was or was not a hazard. And that's what we want, right? So we don't want to leave that junior guy out there, or that senior man or whatever, to have to do this on their own. Just give us a call. We'll come down. We'll discuss it, whatever it is. But we want to make sure we know, so that we're formulating the proper plan, because if you're on scene and this incident's evolving, you may need to start getting those resources going now. All right. All interactions, damage, or exposed lithium-ion batteries, members need to be in full gear on SCBA, charged hose line in place. If you're putting out fire, that's all going to be happening. But what if you're not? What if you just walked into the unexpected? Slow it down, back it up, get your stuff on, get your line in place, and then get back at it. What if it's during overhaul? Right? We didn't realize this was lithium-ion, and we've already done a sweep for these things, and we didn't see anything, but now we find it. We know it's off gas and toxic flammable gases. Stop, slow it down, right? get the line. If it's not there, it should be, but if it's not, get a line there. Get geared up, get on air. We're not going to be in the vicinity of these batteries that either have been on fire or have been exposed to the heat of the fire and are now a hazard without being geared up and on air. And a charged hose line. Resist the urge to just pick them up. Again, you might be falling to a lull, right? Because I'm walking in while this thing is taking a break, and I'm just going to want to pick it up and bring it outside. We can't do that. We think of them like mini pipe bombs. They want to do me harm. They're laying in wait. They're trying to trick me. They want me to let my guard down. I'm not going to do it. Not going to be complacent. Think rekindle. You wouldn't move a mattress off of floor 3 without overhauling and wetting it down where it sits, right? And then you throw it out the window. Same thing here. We don't want to just grab this thing and start walking around with it. All right. All right. So devices, batteries in our devices exposed to heat, not currently on fire. All right. So I think we missed one, but if I find batteries, I'm putting out fire and I find batteries or things and devices that aren't exposed, they're not on fire, just get them out of the way. Don't let them become that. Don't let them become a victim of the fire. All right. But if now we're putting out fire and we come across these, they've been exposed to the heat. And think about this when we talk about exposed to heat. What's in our pocket that we're talking on? A radio with a lithium-ion battery in it, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. We're talking about exposure, right? I look at it like, is there discoloration? Is there disformity? Maybe I can't tell. Maybe I'm hot where I'm sitting and this thing's right next to me. Well, that's probably exposed to heat, right? So what are your senses telling you? All right. All firefighters in this vicinity, if they're not already, full PPE, SCBA, charged hose line. All right. Device should be isolated. If, depending on the structure, right? If I can't just get this outside in my non-conductive shovel or something real fast, if I need to, I'm putting out fire and I need to get this in somewhere where I feel like it's safer, then that bathtub sink full of water is better than just letting it sit right here. Okay. If it's equidistant to that bathroom as it is to the front door, well, maybe the front lawn is that. But what if I'm on the 10th floor of that high rise? All right, so we gotta think, right? What's that risk assessment? What am I going to do with these? All right, so those are an option. Get them submerged in water until I have the manpower to deal with it, right? Or the incident has been stabilized enough for me to now go deal with that. Okay. Device shouldn't be transferred to elevator. Stairs should be avoided. We saw what happened in an elevator, right? So if elevator is my only way out of here, I want this overpacked first. Now we saw, and I'm going to talk about overpacking, we saw some limitations there, but it's still better than not doing it, right? Open air runaway is much worse than drum with something, or cell block is what we use as well, right? So it does have a suppression factor. It does do something. It is suppressing, right? It might not be the end all be all that, you know, as it's advertised, but it's definitely working, doing something. So we're not going to put in elevators. If so, it's got to be overpacked for us in a drum with cell block, and it's going to go in that elevator unmanned. So we'll take it out of phase 2, back to phase 1, goes down to the lobby, right, on its own. Avoid the stairs if you can, but what if the stairs are right here, right? So I'm on making my way up the stairwell, right, trying to get into floor 3, the fire's in the kitchen, and that device is right there. So we talked about, and we learned this from some of the stories the guys in New York said. They were passing at one of these bike, the apartment, 20th floor, whatever it was, and it was a bike repair shop, and they're passing the bikes, and they're just putting them behind them, right? They're putting pipe bombs behind them, really, right? Or propane tanks. What would you do with a propane tank if someone just handed it to you, and you're in the stairwell? Well, I'm not supposed to be on the stairs with them. What are you going to do, run in the room on fire? Just get it outside, right? What are you going to do? Make it as safe as you can, all right? So if they are right there, then you're going to have to do that. But we try to avoid the stairs unless it's overpacked. We'd rather have it overpacked and as safe as it can be. Always taking precautions. We never trust it, even when it's overpacked. We don't want to block egress while relocating these devices, like I just said. Think about it. If that's a propane tank, where are you putting it? All right. Remove from the building when it's safe to do so. And again, if it's dependent on the structure and how far I am from that exit, my tools at hand, I'd like to have it overpacked before we move this thing. But again, if I'm expecting an event, how long do I let it sit? Right? Our overpack stuff is not on our first line pieces. It's everything we need right now. I'm going to call that stuff in on my special ops after. So typically we're using those non-conductive shovels and getting this outside and isolated and we're going to overpack it after. If a battery is discovered, and it's the same if it's on fire. I don't know where that slide went, but whether it's exposed to heat or actually on fire. So if we're putting out fire and I see that it's some type of device or batteries, there's no difference. I still got to put out the fire. And am I over? All right. So lithium batteries. I still got to put out the fire. Yes, water is the extinguishing agent, right? That's what has been working. It's going to cool it. This is lithium. This is reacts to water, right? If I take this lithium metal out of this and put it in water, it's going to ignite. Okay, that's lithium. That's a lithium battery, lithium metal. Lithium-ion doesn't do that, right? Doesn't react with water. All right. So it's okay. Yes, we're going to use water. So if I'm putting out fire and I see that it's a device, well, I'm not going to stop putting it out. I'm just going to keep doing it. And I'm going to keep doing it. Get the instant stabilize, put out the fire, and then see what you got, and then go from there and make it safe. All right. Again, overhaul. So maybe we noticed these during overhaul. Maybe we knew it before. We didn't realize that that's what we had, and we put out a fire. We have to get in this mindset. We know the batteries are everywhere, devices are everywhere. Get in the mindset before you rip the whole ceiling down to take a look. That's when we need to look, because we might not know it yet. How many fires we had in the past, but maybe this was the cause, but we blamed it on the device, right? That transfer station, the recycling transfer station, how many fires you been to there, right? Or the dump trucks or whatever it is. And now we know. Now we kind of know what we're looking for. So before you, any fire, before you start that overhaul, have you guys get in the habit of looking for this stuff, all right? If it's discovered during the overhaul, take a step back, make sure you got the line, make sure guys are geared up, all right? And before you keep pulling, let's stop and start over. Start looking again. Do another sweep. It's tedious, but you got to keep your people on task, keep them in gear, keep them on air, and rotate them, right? I got one crew in there looking for batteries. I got a crew on standby with the watch line, and everyone else is in rehab, right? We got to keep it going. You're going to use a lot of air doing that, but it's what we have to do. Talked about this advisory and the contractor. So here's my feeling on this. And actually in the advisory, there's a sentence that says, when rendered safe. When are these rendered safe? Is anyone comfortable with calling a civilian and say, hey, take this bomb, would you? So my opinion on this. I'm the incident commander. I own this. And if I call other people in to deal with this and they get hurt, that's on me. So that's my opinion on it. So we are going to do what we can with what we have right now, operationally, boots on the ground. We're going to put the fires out. We're going to get these things isolated. And if they're in a device, we can't pack the device. That's why we start dismantling and cutting them out, right? I'm going to use my non-conductive shovels. If I have to deal with cutting wires and things like that, I'm going to put on low voltage gloves in case that stranded energy. And we use insulated tools, electrician's tools. All right. If I have to touch the battery, like from here into the drum, high heat gloves, right? More resistance than our fire gloves. Those extra steps. The emergency is over. I expect something to happen with this thing. So back up. I have time to change my gloves, right? And now go do that next step. Back up, change your gloves. It's no big deal, right? Have your plan in place. Look up the manual. How do I take the battery out? Maybe it's just unclipping the thing and pulling it out, right? It's okay to do that now, right? How many screws? Where are those screws? All right, get all your tools, get your table set up, get some lights, get the line ready, and now start dismantling your thing. But here, so once we get these out, here's your options. Homeowner, talk to your homeowner. Is your homeowner going to take care of this? How are you going to guarantee that? Do we leave known hazards on scene? Do we leave a scene still hazardous, right? We get there, we're supposed to make it better. We'll make it safe. So how can we guarantee the homeowner is going to do what they're supposed to do? They're going to hire a hazardous waste contractor. Now we call the DEP, and is a hazardous waste contractor coming? And they're from the private sector, which no knock on that. I'm sure they're well versed in what they're doing, but are they like what's going to happen? I confidently know that we dealt with this and made it safe if we deal with it. And that's the way we chose to go with this. So we are going to overpack it. We are going to put it in cell block and put it in that drum. We're going to put a sticker on it. We're going to label it with the date that it was packed and put the address on it. And we're going to make it sit for a minimum of 30 days. So another partnership we developed was with our DPW. We've been talking to them. That's who does our recycling anyway. Call to Recycle is a place that we use in the city anyway. So that's part of your homework. Who do you already use? So that's our end of life batteries that we do that with. He's already flipping through things. So that's our end of life batteries, but we can't, that's not the same as a DDR battery, but we are still using them, right? So our DPW is going to pick this drum up. We're going to follow them and they're going to isolate it in their yard, right? In a locked area, and they're not going to touch it for 30 days. I don't want someone else picking it up and taking this thing. We saw that this isn't the end all be all. There's still going to be an event that has some off gas and things like that. So I'm going to make it as safe as I can. If I put it in a drum, I want it to have a vent, right? And I like the Cell Max drums, the blue ones with the vent off the side, and it has cell block lined in it, right? Because we're doing emergency packing. So I'm going to use the best I can, and that's the Cell Max drum, emergency packing. After 30 days, they can unpack it and pack it in the least amount of material to meet the special permit and ship it to the recycler. Unless we tell them otherwise, right? Unless she's picking it up for the consumer protection or the insurance needs it for investigation or whatever it is. But it has to sit for minimum 30 days, isolated, untouched. And that's just what we chose to do. I feel much more confident in that plan than leaving an open 55-gallon drum off-gassing in someone's backyard, than having a civilian pick it up, right? All these other things that have the potential for bad stuff to happen. We know the dangers, we're taking the right precautions and being as safe as we can with what we know now. And I feel much better about that plan, that we handled it, and then we'll pass it off after 30 days. So batteries moved to the outside and isolated, crew PPE. Again, have your plan in place, have a table set up, lighting, whatever it is, if you got to dismantle something. And then when we're overpacking, so that's a Cell Max drum. It has a vent in the side. They're not weather tight, by the way. If you leave that outside and for 30 days in the rain, the water's getting in, right? We learned that one. And the basics of these are cell block, 3 inches on the bottom, put your cells into packs, right? So we don't want it, we don't have to dismantle this to get to the cells. I can pack it in the pack, right? I'm not going to be able to put a whole bike in there, so I might have to dismantle that. And if I got to cut wires, I'll put my low voltage gloves on. If I have to cut the frames and stuff like that, then I'll do that, and I'll cut it right out, and I'll put that in there. And then I want 2 inches of separation, right? And then more cell block and layer it like a cake. All right, so 3 inches, cells into packs, cell block, and on and on. When they do this for shipping, there's certain things, if you're going to be the shipper yourself, and that's something you have to determine what you're going to do with this after. Where's it going to be stored? Who's transporting it? Now, the transport from the scene, it's not in commerce, so there's nothing about hazmat or anything like that for DOT. After, though, when it gets shipped for recycling, that's commerce, that's DOT. Okay? So we're going to do this, overpack it. When you're doing this, right, fire prevention, where do they fit in? So we heard from Deputy Fire Marshal Taylor, and there's definitely some changes with the fire investigation. So part of that is this, right? So if they get pictures and things like that inside, if they could, but while we're doing this, there should be a log, right? Some pictures taken. Before it's a ship, they definitely have to take pictures of how it's packed to give it to them to make sure it's been packed properly. So photographs, log the contents, have fire prevention investigating involved at that point, so we know what we're putting in there. Again, cell block, you know, I don't care what you use, right? It's a suppressing agent, it's a Class D. They say it works for lithium-ion. We saw that it's not, you know, perfect, but it definitely suppressed, right? If that wasn't in there, that would have been much more violent. We know that. Violent and unpredictable. That's what these things are. All right, so there's our guys overpacking. They're on air, charged hose line with another crew in the corner. So some answers that you need to come up with. All right, what's your removal and disposal plan? All right, so who's your partners going to be? What are you capable and willing to do as a department? Are you doing it all? Do you have a recycling plan already in your community that you can tap into? Do you have a utilities or a DPW that would help you out? Are you doing all of it, right? Who's going to transport the drum from the scene to wherever it's going to be stored and isolated, right? And hopefully in a covered, some type of weather tight thing that can still vent, right? Who's going to store them and where? Who's going to ship them and to whom? So who's going to be that shipper now after those 30 days or whatever you decide, right? Who's now taking that on, and then where you're shipping it to. So for us, we didn't want to get involved in shipping. DBW is already an enterprise account. They already deal with recycling. They have a billing mechanism. So if this was a house fire that triggered an insurance claim, they're going to try to bill and recoup their cost. All right, and who's going to pay? So again, we kind of have that worked out, but how you're going to get, paid for your drum, who's replacing them, and all those things, that's part of the plans you got to start figuring out now. In your own, right, battery management for yourselves, right? Look at this. We probably all saw that on social media, right? All of our stuff, we're all going e-devices, right? For your extrication tools and stuff like that. All our fans, right? DDR versus end-of-life batteries. What are you doing with those? End of life, right? Just doesn't take a charge anymore. That can be recycled normally. If it's a DDR battery, guys should be now inspecting these things, right? Especially on your hydraulic tools and things that are getting banged around. If they notice something, it needs to be checked, all right? As you get awareness in your departments, guys are going to start noticing stuff, right? It's not worth letting that battery that's all banged up and cracked sit there anymore. It's not worth that, right? And if you get out there and start doing some risk assessment in your community and seeing what you have out there and maybe educating the community, some PR stuff on the dangers of these things and how to make themselves safer, guess what's going to start showing up at your firehouse? Right? People with batteries. End-of-life battery, go recycle it as normal. But if they show up with that battery, I showed you that expanded laptop or something like that, put it down over there. No, just go over there and put it down and then call your shift commander, right? What are we going to do with this? Okay? Don't let them drive away with it in their car. That could end badly for you. Go on. He's so mad at me.
Behind me, you can see the boarded up windows, the aftermath of just the latest fire that investigators believe was related to those batteries. That can be repaired, but the tragic part, this fire killed an 8-year-old girl Saturday. She's far from the only victim. It's a scary thing. Remember that day. Today, boarded up windows marked the spot at the Jacob Reese houses where Khadija Batia saw flames back in December and frantically texted her friends who live in this building to get out.
I knew how urgent it was, especially seeing how high that fire, how really, really high that fire was. Like, it was out of control.
Her friends got out safely, but one man was killed and a 13 and 18-year-old climbed onto a pole to evacuate. Investigators found 7 e-bikes in the apartment and blamed the fire on the batteries.
It's dangerous. We know how dangerous it is.
The FDNY says it was one of 104 fires related to lithium-ion batteries last year. And so far this year, at 150, it's already worse.
We really could double our numbers from last year.
Chief Fire Marshal Daniel Flynn said 6 people have died this year in fires related to failed batteries.
When they do fail, they fail very unexpectedly and very violently. So it's almost like a road torture track.
This demonstration with experts shows what can happen when the batteries are overcharged. The FDNY said you should only use chargers that are compatible with the battery. Don't try to repair a faulty battery and never charge your batteries overnight.
A lot of these fires that we're seeing where people are getting seriously injured and killed, if they had followed our recommendations, these things wouldn't happen.
Nightshade has pushed to ban e-bikes on their properties.
That's not a good idea.
Upper West Side Councilmember Gail Brewer co-sponsored a bill that would ban the sale of e-bike batteries in the city that aren't properly tested by a lab and labeled as such.
So that point of that is the big PR campaign. They've pushed a lot of PR trying to educate the community because of the big problem they've had. So again, lithium-ion batteries pose a serious risk and a hazard. We can't take it lightly. Take the necessary precautions, right? And it's going to take that education piece, right? Because guys aren't going to just do it, right? They're going to wonder why. So give them the why. Let them know how dangerous and unpredictable these are. They will fail violently without little or no warning. If you have something involving lithium-ion battery, notify the shift commander or IC if it's not one and the same. Conduct that threat assessment in your community. What are you dealing with? What do you have? What do you have coming through there? That public education piece, right? Start educating the public. Help yourself, right? Maybe we can avert some of these disasters. One of my greatest fears is being unprepared and ill-equipped. And now, again, and especially in this room, you're the chief officers, right, for your firefighters, right? That should keep all of us up at night, that we're making sure that they are ready to go, that they know what to do at 2 a.m. when I'm not there yet. Be proactive and develop your plan now. Thank you.